Okay, everybody, today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about preseason equipment planning. This is Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation. Welcome to my weekly broadcast where I break down endurance topics that are happening inside the team and share our perspective on how we manage these choices to optimize both for performance, but also just a better overall quality endurance lifestyle. All right. Okay, let's dive into some preseason equipment choices. This is actually a really important part of the process. A lot of people don't actually think a great deal about what it means to be successful as an athlete from their equipment choices. We think a lot about success as an athlete being work ethic or genetics, etc. But when we talk about endurance events, even a subtle change in equipment can actually have massive downstream implications. I think that people generally understand that, for example, cycling aero bars are faster. People don't necessarily quantify how much faster that is, but they're like, okay, aero bars are faster or race wheels are faster. I think the first widespread use of equipment to generate instant speed for people would have to be Nike, the 4% Project, those carbon plate or fiber running shoes, expensive as all get out. But when people actually put them on, literally would go run, and they're running like 8-minute miles. Then they would go run, same heart rate, but run with the new shoes on. And all of a sudden they're running like 740s and they haven't changed anything. And they're like, this piece of equipment makes me faster. And people can feel that at a real tangible level, not just an Olympian in some sort of outer space speed suit. I think that was really the first generic, or I should say widespread situation where people collectively as athletes experience the benefit of equipment related directly to speed. Other choices, like I said earlier, we make because we know they're the right choices to make, but we don't necessarily tangibly feel those changes. Something like running or swimming where we have a great deal of resistance, we see that change a lot more quickly. And so it is important to understand that actually good equipment selection does make a difference. But we have to figure out what it is we're going to be doing when we think about how we're going to handle these choices, because sometimes the choices that we're making aren't necessarily aligned with our overall goals. And so I've got a rubric today that I want to talk to you about in terms of how we think about making preseason equipment choices. And we're going to walk through that today. So first and foremost, I want you to understand all these equipment choices obviously based on your budget and what your goals are individually. So new equipment isn't always the answer. But by now in the preseason, we've done a couple weeks of training. Some of you have done 12 or 14 weeks of the out season. Others of you are just getting started. But you've had a couple weeks under your belt and you have a good sense of the areas of where things are working, where things are not working. And we really want to start a decision-making process along those lines. We'll keep our races in mind, as you'll see, but we want to make sure that as we're understanding what choices to make, which can have net positive impacts and hopefully increasing impacts across the course of the season, that we're doing it based off of not only these criteria, but the experience. Just shopping at Christmas because something is for sale is fun, but without the context for it or understanding you're going to use it or how it would benefit the system that you're building already, it becomes more of a desire purchase than an actual sort of tangible outcome. Could work out to be the best for you, but it's hard to say. Okay, so let's get into here. The first criteria that we want to use when we think about our preseason equipment choices is what is not working for you? What is providing the most resistance from a training perspective for you right now? Is it your run shoes? Like, is your run uncomfortable? Is it your cycling? Are your bike workouts ineffective, or they're not being measured, or it's just awful inside your pain cave? It's too hot or too cold, too boring. Are you struggling getting to the gym? You have a gym membership but you can't get to the gym, or you don't like a personal trainer, or the weight routine is really impacting your ability to do other workouts during the week. What's the friction that you feel? What's just not working for you? Let's start there, because if we can solve the things that are causing problems for you, we can get you better. If you're not sleeping, let's get you a better pillow or get you a white noise machine. If the run is just not the jam for you, let's get a new pair of sneakers. We can always return stuff. We can always deal with stuff later, but we have to start making some of these changes just to see what happens. Maybe it's your bike seat. Maybe it's your bike fit. There's lots of elements. Maybe you don't have enough cold weather gear. So you want to run and you enjoy running and you don't have a foot problem, but God damn, your hands are freezing when you work out and you're just miserable. Let's get some new gloves. So what's not working for you? Where's the discomfort or the performance impact of these things that are not working for you in the early part of the season? So start there, because we want to solve those things. May not be sexy to get a new bike seat. May not be sexy to get new bike shoes or mess around with your cleats or buy gloves. Who buys gloves for themselves? But if it's a pain point for you, let's address those first. So those should be at the top of the list for you, the things when you're doing this sort of preseason equipment audit and making decisions. Second on the list for us here is, what have you been abusing? I'm super guilty of this. What piece of equipment are you just using all the time? For me, it's my road bike on the trainer when I ride Zwift and my trainer setup. On my kicker, I ride that thing all the time. So I'm crushing the heck out of that. So I really have to be mindful and make sure that I'm repairing it, maintaining it, taking care of it, cleaning it, all those things, because I'm putting a ton of miles into it. Commensurately, if you've been running or preparing for an ultra or just getting outside and enjoying your new run life, it's possible you've been abusing the heck out of your shoes or your running shorts or running tights or running shirts or whatever it is. And that may be an area we want to say, like, how do we improve this? Maybe you only have one pair of gloves for running, so we'll get a second pair of gloves. Maybe you only have one pair of shoes for running, but you're running on the trail and on the road, so maybe we'll get a pair of trail shoes just to have a variety inside all of the running that you're doing. On the cycling side, hey, if you're really abusing that bike, how do you take care of it on a monthly basis? Maybe you schedule a tune-up, even though you haven't been outside it, maybe you get a tune-up built in there. But take a look at the data and say, what have I been over-indexing on? And let that be a decision point for you, because that eventually will become a point of failure later. The shoes will wear out. The trainer will get damaged. The bike, the cables, the brakes, everything will just not start to work for you. And we can identify that problem earlier, long before it's a problem, by saying, what am I using the most and how do I make sure that item is well taken care of? Okay. All right. Number 3 here. Preseason choices should also be influenced by your races, specifically your race geography. So are you going to a place that's going to be super hilly? If so, what are the gearing choices that we need to make? Do we need to make adaptations to your setup now? Now's the best time to make those changes so you can adapt to them before we get to that part of the season. Is it going to be super cold? Do we need to buy different swim equipment for you, or for you to acclimate getting used to swimming in colder conditions? That would be something good for us to know. We can make purchases and decisions related around that now. Running, for me, I'm not so much worried about the cold, but the heat, right? If it's going to be a hot space where you're going to for your races, how do we make sure that we have the run equipment that's going to support you from hats to hydration to cooling, whatever it is? How do we make sure that all of that's dialed in for you so that you've got it on hand, you can train with it as well, and you can start building that resiliency? So know the races by geography, not just, oh, my race is in Michigan, but like where in Michigan? Is it flat? Is it chip seal road that you're racing on as a triathlete? Are you swimming in a normal lake or like a massive lake that could have potential waves? All of these different pieces will inform you, and you can take a look at the equipment you have and say, this is the race experience I'm going to go for, a super hilly experience. Do I have the equipment that supports me for it? If not, now's a great time to invest in that. Don't be distracted by shiny objects or new things that look cool, but aren't actually going to prepare you for the challenge you've set out. We want to start with something that's a little more concrete, right? Okay, number 4. When we're thinking about our preseason equipment choices, you also have to ask yourself, is speed on the agenda for this year? Are you trying to get faster? So if you do want to have your fastest run ever in an Ironman, then yeah, probably buying some of those expensive shoes and getting used to them make a difference, right? 20 seconds per mile times 26 miles, that's a lot of seconds. And you could actually end up with a lot of time on your side just by better equipment choices there. Same goes for cycling with helmets and wheels, right? Or get as granular as bottle placement could even make a big difference. If it's swimming, it's the same thing in terms of the type of wetsuit you might get, or the type of goggles that you use, or whatever it is. So understand, if you're optimizing for speed from a race perspective, then we'll make a different order of magnitude level decision around early season equipment, because we're trying to get ourselves to a place. So it's possible that when we think about speed, remember, I should say that generally when you want to get faster, the things that you're buying are more expensive. If you just want to ride your bike, buy a bike. You want to ride a bike super, super fast, then you got to buy an expensive bike. If you want to ride a bike to like compete for the world record, then just keep adding zeros at the end of the check that you're writing. It's really going to add up. And so understand that when you do start toggling for speed, I encourage you to do it only after you've figured out what's not working for you and what you've been beating up and dealing with some of the geographical issues. Then we can talk about speed. Because then once you go to speed, things look really cool and sexy and everything, but sometimes those speed items don't hold up well for the day-to-day grind of training. They're also pretty expensive. They can be fragile. We want to make sure that we're using them when we're ready for them. First year, get a bike. Let's ride it. Don't worry about the fastest bike ever. There'll be time for that later, for sure. Okay? And then last but not least, is there something sexy and cool? And I'm not going to take it off the table. I included it here because sometimes sexy things and cool things are just awesome, and we want them, and we want to have them and use them and celebrate being the person who has the newest thing on the block. Yeah, there's a lot of fun in just having a new watch or having something that works better with your overall system. Why not, right? Like I got this Oura ring to track like heart rate, sleeping, and everything like that. It was more expensive than I probably wanted to spend on something, but it's been a net positive for me overall, and it was a splurge item, but it fits into what I was trying to achieve overall, and so I went for it. And I think you can also think the same way. Is there something that's going to really fundamentally change how you organize data, collect data, is how safe you feel, how fast you are, all those elements? If there's something new and sexy out there and that's just your splurge item, nothing wrong with having a great piece of equipment as well. Most of the time as endurance athletes, our stuff gets beat up. We hang on to it for sentimental reasons or because it's just not broken yet. But there's nothing wrong with having something fun out there. But sure, before you go forward and buy that thing that's new and sexy, remember we go through those other 4 questions first to make sure that our preseason equipment choices are aligned with our overall goals, sustain our training, keep us on track, make us the best athlete we can be. So by the time we get to race day, we have the fitness, we have the internal system and integrity to know we can go forth, add a couple widgets on and go really fast, as opposed to building a life around widgets or really bouncing around and not making great, sustainable, integrated choices with our training. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this has been helpful for you thinking about those preseason choices. If you've got something you want to buy, don't tell me about it because I don't want to be tempted, but I'm happy to hear your questions and answer you inside our social channels or inside the team. Thanks and have a fantastic week.